The United States is ratcheting up pressure on the Venezuelan government. Vice President Mike Pence announced that 77 officials linked to Venezuelan leader Nicolas Maduro will have their U.S. visas revoked. 49 people were also added to a sanctions blacklist on Friday. RT's Dan Cohen has more.
The U.S. is threatening to impose sanctions on foreign banks if they deal with the Venezuelan government. National Security Advisor John Bolton issued a statement this morning saying, quote, "The United States is putting foreign financial institutions on notice that they will face sanctions for being involved in facilitating illegitimate transactions that benefit Nicolas Maduro and his corrupt network." The U.S. has also begun to increase pressure on Cuba, which it claims is controlling Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro. Bolton wrote in a tweet that the U.S. will continue to tighten financial restrictions on Cuba's military and intelligence services. Venezuelan authorities, in turn, have declared the German ambassador, Daniel Kriener, persona non grata after what it called interference into its internal affairs. He became the first European diplomat to be expelled from the Latin American state. However, during his Tuesday address to the National Assembly, Juan Guaido says it's not the German ambassador who's the real persona non grata.
Everyone in Venezuela knows who the persona non grata is. And he is the only one who is non grata in the region, in the world, because in all the countries that we went to, they recognize the Venezuelan fight for democracy as a constitutional right.
Now, Maduro responded by saying neither the opposition nor the United States wants to help Venezuela and have their own interests, like Venezuela's natural resources. Russia's Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov also condemned U.S. sanctions against those who support Maduro.
It is yet another confirmation that American diplomacy is quickly losing its ability to use diplomatic instruments and is switching to a language that's never been used in diplomacy before.
Now, there are fears over a military intervention. The Trump administration continues to say all options are on the table, but Elliot Abrams says the U.S. will use other ways to push for what he called democratic transition in Venezuela.
Nobody's talking about American military steps except the regime and the Russians, actually. I made it clear repeatedly. Our policy is, as I just stated, diplomatic, political, economic, financial pressure, moving toward a peaceful democratic transition in Venezuela. That's what we want.
Now, we've just learned that the attempted delivery of so-called humanitarian aid on the Tienditas bridge crossing at the border of Colombia and Venezuela nearly turned into a bloodbath. According to a report in Bloomberg News, 200 exiled soldiers were preparing to clear the way for the aid trucks, but the plan was actually scrapped by the Colombian government. Now, Juan Guaido, we also learned, was planning to tour European capitals after finishing his tour of Latin America, but the United States told him to return to Venezuela for fears that that his movement was losing momentum. So this suggests that it is not Guaido who's calling the shots so much, but it's actually the White House.
The Russian Ministry of Defense has released video showing a Russian fighter jet intercepting what it claims was a U.S. aircraft. The U.S. plane was identified as a Boeing RC-135 reconnaissance aircraft. It was heading towards Russian airspace over the Baltic Sea. After being trailed by the Russian Su-27, the American plane changed direction and left the area. Just coming up to 12:30 here in Moscow. Thanks for staying tuned on RT International. We're back in 30 minutes with the latest global news headlines.